Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for March 5th, 2021. I'm Benji Fisher, moderating the meeting, and also with me are Aaron McHale, who's currently sharing his screen, Ofer Shal, Anmol Goel, Emily Nouveau, Gaurav Malawat, Hilary Prager, and Jillian Chueka. I hope I'm pronouncing all of those names correctly. This is the first time for Hilary and Jillian, so thanks for joining us. And Aaron is going to start us off with an issue.
Yeah, so this was one that we looked at the end of last week's meeting, but we were slightly running out of time. So we agreed to, one of the person who's presenting at the time agreed to take an action to implement some of the changes we had proposed into some new screenshots and put those up, and then we would revisit this issue. So really, we're looking at updating the text on the account cancellation screen. So we can see we've got a couple of screenshots here, and it's really just to make the text a bit improved. So what we've got is we've got the current interface as it is right now, where we have the 4 options, and then we've got a screenshot of what we had suggested from last week's meeting. But one thing that we were still a bit contentious on was the line at the end here above the button that says select method to cancel the account above. I believe that was a point we still wanted to discuss. So hopefully we can sort of iterate on this again, and then once we're at a point where we're happy with it, we can sign it off as saying this interface has been reviewed by usability, and then we can get that pushed forward. So if you'll notice, a couple of things that sort of the main change that we proposed from last week was introducing the word permanently before delete in the 3rd and 4th option here. This was done because we felt that it also took out the second sentence of the last line, this action cannot be undone. So we took that out in favor of putting permanently into both those options, which we felt read a bit better, as those were the ones that were the most destructive. So I think that, unless anyone's got anything else to add, I think that covers kind of where we got to with this. And I think we'd just be interested to get any additional feedback, like I said, particularly around the line around select the method to cancel the account above. I think I personally had issue with the word above because we shouldn't be using directional terms. But in general, I also and some others felt it was a bit sort of unnecessary, that line, when we kind of state that in other places.
I would say redundant.
Yes, redundant is the word. Yes.
It's not adding anything.
Wouldn't it be even better if we took the sentence that says above, we replaced when canceling the account, get rid of that line and say, select the method to cancel the account. And that would be the first line, followed by the 4 choices in the checkbox. Because I like select the method to cancel the account. I think that's actually better wording. We don't need the directional. And if we have that first and we get rid of when canceling the account, it's a select the method, and it's like disable, because the method is disable the account and keep its content. To me, it's very direct and accurate that way.
For me, the way I read it, the sentence appeared just above the button after you're already supposed to have it in your mind. That sentence almost like belonged to, that's when you're selecting. Here it's actually confirming, it seems. Or am I seeing it wrong?
Yep. So
all I can choose at the bottom is either cancel account or cancel.
Yeah, so the sentence at the bottom is actually meant to direct. I guess it is meant to associate with the 4 options above. So, and I like the suggestion of just taking that sentence and replacing the when canceling the account with that text.
Minus above.
Yes, minus above, yeah.
And the way I read it, if I looked at the UI with that change, is I would say, select the method to cancel the account, disable the account and keep its content, then click and then you click cancel account. To me, that sequence is logical and contains all the information about the action and what the person is doing. And each option that they choose reads well with the select the method to cancel the account, permanent delete the account, and make its content belong to the anonymous user, etc. So the flow seems to function in that order.
That sounds good. Is there any, and actually, sorry, I should have read the issue number before starting. So for the recording, issue number is 3199972. So apologies, I should have done that first. Is there any other feedback on this anybody would like to share?
Was there any previous conversation on cancel account and cancel being similar, a little bit confusing?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up too, that it kind of is slightly confusing, like you're canceling. The action is to cancel, so you have two cancel options, so it seems kind of confusing. I can see someone getting tripped up there.
Yeah. We didn't discuss it at, it didn't come up at last week's meeting, but I don't think it has. I don't believe that's been mentioned in the issue, but I also agree that that's maybe something to look at.
This is the screen where people go to already cancel a specific account. That's the context of where it's at. Or this is a general setting for the website.
So this is for if you are, so this is especially if you're an administrator and you're going into the user screen and you select a user and then you go to click the cancel account button on the administrate on the user edit screen. I'm not actually sure because users can, it can be configured so users can cancel their own accounts, but I'm actually not sure if that's to say if they presumably they get a different kind of screen, but I'm actually not sure what that screen is.
Would we want to shorten the sentence to select the method to, and then disable the account and keep its content, disable the account and publish its content, so that we could get rid of from the select the method to cancel and just say select the method to, and then it makes each of these a continuation of the sentence. I mean,
And I have a suggestion for the labels on the two buttons. It's a little more work, but how about the primary button changes its text depending on which selection is made. And it either says disable account or delete account.
that is a better option.
It's nice.
I think that's a good idea. I wonder if I wonder if that would, if we would need some kind of like default option in case the user doesn't have JavaScript enabled.
Well, you could have a generic term like modify account or change or leave cancel account as the fallback for no JavaScript.
Or even like confirm, maybe?
Oh yeah, confirm or cancel. That's, yeah, I
so
like that.
So like confirm could be, so I'm just thinking if also like this could very well want to be a follow-up because it might work in this issue, but I'm just thinking like it might take longer for this issue to get committed. So if we did that in a follow-up, or we could do it in this issue, but certainly it's like if we just said also change the text of the button to like confirm, but also investigate the possibility of making it so that the text of the button changes depending on what option you select.
Yeah, I would make it a separate issue. I think change the text to confirm, or if someone has another alternative, we can talk about that. But keep this as a self-contained, achievable goal, because these are good improvements, all of them. Like just adding permanently is a big difference for me. But we go through everything that we can do within this context, and then we open up a new issue for the choice aware change of the text, because that really would hammer it home that you're either disabling or deleting. And I don't think it could be better. Like, to me, that's a really strong improvement.
For sure. So with regards to changing the when canceling the account to select the method to, I presume we would sort of minor point, but would we want like a semicolon? So select method to semicolon and then the 4 options. I presume that would be what we would.
Not a semicolon, maybe you mean a full colon?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, colon.
Oh, colon, yeah, semicolon, colon. The one with the 2 dots, not the one with the dotted comma. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Thank you. That's very explicit.
Yeah.
I don't know that. I think we can use the full sentence, select the method to cancel the account, if we're getting rid of cancel from everything beneath it. So either works. We can either have select the method to colon, if we want to get rid of the word cancel in all contexts. If it's the only instance of cancel, it's fine to leave it there. It's just less redundant, or we've gotten rid of the redundancy. So both options seem reasonable. Colon should be there if it's just half a sentence. I would argue when canceling the account should also have a colon after it, because that's it's half a sentence the way it's written right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say remove the word cancel from the text, since it's still there on the cancel button, the secondary button.
Oh no, we're going to get rid of cancel. We were going to switch. I think that was the suggestion, was switch cancel account on the button to confirm versus cancel.
Okay, but then we're keeping the word cancel on the button, on the do nothing button.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's okay. I missed that. So let's just pull cancel completely from the sentence. It's not necessary. So select the method to colon sounds right.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm now realizing how many times cancel appears on this page and means different things.
Yep. An awesome catch.
Yeah.
And cancel is still in that checkbox option.
Oh, there's another one.
That can be changed to require email confirmation. We don't need the to cancel account.
Okay, so we're getting rid of cancel everywhere except the secondary button.
Yeah.
Basically.
Who caught that? I know that was an awesome catch. Like everything felt weird, and that was sorry.
I think I'm the one who pointed that out.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we want to make these changes and then just bring this back next week for confirmation that everything looks right?
Yeah, we could do. I think that would be, and then we'll give it a final sign off if we're all happy. So just to confirm, so everybody is, if this sounds good to everybody, so change when canceling the account, we're changing that to select method to colon, so 2 dots, and then the 4 options, and then changing require email confirmation to cancel the account to just require email confirmation, and then removing the line below that, select method to cancel the account above, and changing the cancel account button to just say confirm, leaving the secondary button as just cancel. And I see one last instance of the word cancellation on the button, the text description under the require email confirmation, but I think that one's okay. I think I don't think, does anybody have a problem with the word cancellation via email?
I'd rather get rid of it, but I don't have an immediate suggestion coming to mind.
I have no recommendation there either.
So let's leave it at that. If
Okay.
we're
Yep.
planning to bring it up for a third time next week. I see that Christina Chumias has joined us, and of course Thomas Howell, who's contributed to the discussion already. Any last comments on this issue before we move on? All right, Aaron, if you'll release the screen share. Christina, would you like to share your screen?
Yeah, sure.
Perfect.
Do you see it?
Yes, and a little more zoom would be nice.
Okay.
And don't
How about
forget to
this
read the
one?
issue number.
Okay. So the issue number for this specific one is 3201550. It's adding the new content manager role to standard profile. But I'm going to give a little bit of context and background about this. So a while ago on the Admin UI initiative, we conducted like several user tests, and one of the results in there was one of the conclusions that we get to is that we needed a role, specific role for editors where we can have a menu for the editors, for example, a dashboard or specific things for editors, because a lot of times even the main menu is completely different. The information architecture is completely different. So we needed something specific for content editors, or someone that at least is not a site builder or an admin. So we created the Drupal core ideas issue. And well, it was, as you can see, a while ago, like 5 years ago. And from this discussion, we decided that we needed two roles. One was for content editors or content authors. And also we needed another role that was for content managers, meaning someone that is the responsible to publish the content, not to creating the content, because sometimes you maybe have 20 editors and some like 2 or 3 managers. So we decided that we were going to have these two different roles, and the discussion was which permissions were each role was going to have. So we started creating the content editor role, which actually was the clear one. And in here, what we did was adding the permissions that were assigned in Umami for the editor. And we, based on that, we reviewed what was going to be here. And this patch is basically adding all these permissions. When we discussed that a while ago, there were several things that were mentioned that in theory shouldn't be part of the content editor role rather than a content manager role. For example, the publish transition, the moment that you enable content moderation. So the problem is that if we had this proposal already in place, we had a patch here, but we still needed to discuss a content manager role and do everything from scratch in there. So it was a while ago, and the last comment from Angie was that, yes, we agreed we need this other role, and the moment that we have the two roles, one is going to manage one thing and the other the others. And if there's only one person controlling and adding content on the site, into the site, it's going to have the two roles. But since we didn't have yet this other issue, the content manager one, we decided that we were going to go with these permissions for now for the content editor, and then we will create this new issue. And in this new issue, what we're going to do is decide, obviously, the name, agree on the permissions that each role needs to have, like if the content manager needs to have some permissions that the content editor doesn't need to have, we will remove that from the content editor. So this is a batch that should come after the other one, and then finally create a batch. This way we will unblock this issue, which is the first one that creates the content editor. And from there, we create the content manager. The problem is that if we create the content editor without the publishing permissions, for example, the moment that you enable that, nobody has permissions to publish content for the content moderation, for example. That's why we are first adding all the permissions into the editor, basic editor one, and then removing them when we add the content manager one. And that's all that I had to explain. Now, what we need to discuss here, or at least that you are aware that this issue is in here, is which permissions should fall into each of these roles.
And the plan is to get both of these issues in before 9.2 is released, so that we don't actually have a release that has the permissions and then another one that removes them.
That could be awesome, obviously. Yeah, but the sooner we can agree on both, the sooner we can do this.
Yeah. One other question before we go to the list of permissions is the idea that the content manager role will have all the permissions of the content editor plus some, or is the idea that it only has the few manager permissions and content managers will normally be assigned both roles?
I would go for this last one. That's what I would think.
I agree. I think it's you don't want to essentially the content manager is an elevation of privilege, and so it's additive. I think that if it has redundant things, the challenge is you may have people configure a content manager assuming they don't need a content editor. So I agree with Christina. And I think this sounds great. Like I like the separation of the issue in this way is awesome. So this is great.
Could you repeat what you said about its elevation of permissions? No, how did you say?
So what I mean by elevation is from like from my layman's view of security. You're essentially saying that the content manager has more permission, has special privileges. They are it's an addition or add-on to the content editor. So by only defining within it the managerial tasks, it's very clear what its role is, rather than muddying the water and having to worry about if you add additional permissions, adding it to both roles in the future. Like you could add additional editorial things to the content editor, and it makes management of additional code easier in the future, I think.
Perfect.
So it's separation. Yeah.
I was just trying to write it down so I don't have to remember later exactly what you said.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's perfect. You actually gave me enough content to write it. So, okay, we all agree on this. Do you want to check the permissions that we had before? So from the list, I think the most controversial one was the publish transition.
Yes.
Or maybe we can check the badge itself.
Just note that I think I don't know if it's happened yet or if it will happen, but pretty sure that the aggregator module is going to be removed from core. So that might be one to just knock off the list, so to
Okay.
speak.
So do you prefer to check it from here? Is that okay? That way we can be more.
That's fine with me.
Okay. Content administer URL aliases. I would say that's for the editor also. Create content in general.
Slow down. Can you go back to number 20?
Yeah, access user profiles.
Why?
I don't know. Should we suggest to remove? That's on the editor role right now.
To me,
So
that
just to
would,
clarify, we're looking at the editor role permissions. Is that right?
Yeah, right now, exactly,
Okay.
the patch, the content of the patch. We can suggest more changes here. I mean, just.
so for context, can we list all of the roles that we expect to have? So we're going to have anonymous, we are going to have administrator, we're going to have content editor, and we're going to have content manager. Is that correct?
And logged in? No, what's the
Authenticated.
authenticated, right?
Okay. So if we're going to have 5 roles, access user profiles would seem to be authenticated to me rather than something specific to the editor.
Okay.
Yes, I would agree.
The important thing to note is people can change these default behaviors. It just seems like I'm thinking about this in where I would assume this would exist in a default configuration with those 5 roles.
Yeah, this isn't something, it's worth bearing in mind, like this isn't, presumably, like this is just going to be introduced in the standard profile. We're not updating existing sites. Like this is to give you a solid starting base. So like we could be fairly loose about what we define as this is what, you know, a content editor, but let's be realistic. And, you know, like I said, I would agree that access user profiles probably doesn't make sense in a role that's specifically about editing content.
Yep, but add content to books is obvious that belongs there. So
right.
So do we want to go through these line by line just to see if do we want to start with one and just say yes, yes, yes? So,
there's only 59, so
only 59.
it's not like 200.
I think most people, I think most of these we're going to be okay with. I'm just wondering if it's easier to go through one by one and just ask if there's a question and get it done in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, so let's see, change on username, probably it's also authenticated thing.
Correct, yes.
Create article, create book, media, URL, aliases, delete stuff. Do you think it should be editable? I think so, but
yes.
Any thoughts? Okay. Edit on content. I also think so. Edit tags. I also think that.
So we're saying the delete is part of the manager, no, or is the editor?
Editor. We are talking about the editor, but we can.
Okay.
Anybody can disagree with that.
I'm just thinking.
Like, this is not editorial transition. That's just deleting directly.
Yeah.
Not sure if when you enable content moderation, you are actually overriding this. I'm not sure.
Something about delete being in there like doesn't quite sit with me, and I think it's because I'm in an organization I mainly work in. I'm really used to for legal reasons we can't delete revisions, we can't delete content. We are like we have retention schedules, for instance. Like if content is published on the website, it has to be, we have to keep it for
what about keeping own article, book, and page, and
Yeah.
removing the others.
The others in my mind, so 32 through 35 would belong in content manager, and the own, so
The
36, 37,
33.
38 would be definitely editor. And you'd apply 40, 41, 40, like anything that is owned belongs under editor. And then it's question, like I would ask the others if they belong. So delete, you would probably want to put under a manager, because the assumption is in a default website where it's like one editor and I'm just installing a blog, I'd give myself both privileges. Odds are I'd probably even have administrator, but say it's a small place where I separate administrator out. The manager, you'd give both roles to most people, but in an organization where you wanted to delineate deletion, basically if there's a permanent unrecoverable change, and delete is a permanent unrecoverable change, that's why you would block people from anything but their own.
Let's slow down and give other people a chance to chime in. Emily mentioned in Slack that she approves of assigning the delete permissions to the manager. Do other people want to speak up? And Aaron, do you agree that delete own should be a permission for the editor? I'm thinking that, just because an editor is the one who created a piece of content, it might still be appropriate for the manager to have decisions about whether or not to remove something from the site after it's already been published.
Yeah, I would see the difficulty is actually when, because I'm just thinking, how does this interact with content moderation? Because if you have content moderation states, like if something goes to published, but then yes, I would say I would agree with what you're saying, I think, because like we can't just like basically my thinking is like if something's in a draft state, like probably like it's probably okay to delete it because it's never being published. But if it's then being published, like we wouldn't necessarily want an editor to be able to go in and then delete it. But then in theory, an editor could set it back to draft and then delete it. So like probably makes sense just to not have editor have delete in the first place. Again, like I'm trying to be really loose about this because I know this is just a get you started kind of template thing. So but also, do we, just to clarify again, is it so it's the case that are we putting the editor ones in first and then we're going to remove permissions from editor to add to the manager role? Is that right? Is that did I understand that correctly? Or are we trying to put them both in at the same time?
But separated, but first we need to, so all these delete ones right now should be on the editor one. Maybe probably the ones that belong to the authenticated, no, they don't need to be there. But the ones that belong to the manager, they need to be on the first batch, which is going to add the content editor. And then all this conversation that we're having, I'm going to paste that into the content manager role. So then in there is where we remove the ones that we don't want to the editor, and we separate per role each permissions. So these conversations need to happen anyway at some point. So it better happens now, so we have a clear path.
So I guess at the moment, one way to frame the discussion right now would be, are there any like permissions that are on that list that we think shouldn't belong to editor or manager, or editor and manager, or are the ones that are missing that could be in either role? I guess would be one way to frame it at the moment. I'm just thinking because we could get, depending on how controversial some of these are, we could spend like 2 hours discussing it right now,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
In general, I think that because we can change these things, in the past, my strong opposition was incorrect. I think that this is a starting place. Everything that's been said about the delete makes sense, and I can get behind just saying certain types of roles like delete should just be manager. we can, the site administrator can change these behaviors. So this isn't the end of the world. And we're not making like huge decisions here. And you can give both roles. I just think the only thing that I would ask for is that certain roles only exist under manager. That's the only thing that I would beg for, and it dealt with things like delete or
Certain permissions.
publishing. Yeah, very limited permissions. I think editor is going to be big. I think manager is going to be very small.
Quick question. Do we have text on the roles assignment page suggesting that people add multiple roles to get all the permissions? Because I think in other systems, it's common to assign every role or every permission that a person needs to one role. And yeah, I just don't remember if we have text suggesting that people assign multiple roles to get all the permissions they need.
That's a good thing to point out.
I haven't read any.
I don't recall. No.
I'm looking at the text now. It mentions any permissions granted to the authenticated user role will be given to any user who is logged into your site. So there's
Okay.
an implicit suggestion there, but certainly nothing explicit. I would also want to look at the user guide to see whether it says anything about that.
The other thing to consider is because our permission system is so flexible, like other systems that are a bit more prescribed around here's your roles, you can't change these permissions. Like one site could take the what's the right word, like philosophy or idea of like being like, we're only going to assign permissions to a particular role that makes sense for that role, and then users get multiple roles, whereas another site could take the view of like users only need one role and all the permissions that user could need are assigned to this role. So like our permission system is designed in a way that's very flexible. So I'd be really cautious about what text we may or may want to add that implies anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, except if this is something that we're doing out of the box, I do feel like we need some way to give people expectations at the initial point.
Could we create like a follow-up or related issue to this to suggest these changes on the UI?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. So we can talk about it there.
Cool.
This is where I keep coming back. Like there's been 3 meetings in a row where we've brought up issues where I've thought like it would be really great if the roles had a description field, because we could just start putting this contextual information into role descriptions. And this is like the 3rd time in like the last month I've been like, oh, maybe there's an issue that roles need descriptions.
That would be great. Okay, feel free to post that issue related to that content editor one. The number is 3059984 for the content editor one. So I was writing here, there are all the permissions here, and if we keep going through the list of permissions, we have here that revert all the permissions. I think that should go to the manager one. Any thoughts?
That seems reasonable.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Yeah, I think that goes with delete as well.
Okay, then update content translations and update media. I don't think there's anything dangerous here.
No.
And from the editorial transition, either I would say obviously publish.
Yeah.
And archive, publish and archive draft. Not sure. What do you think?
I just checked, is the update media permission, is that like a catch-all for like the media's edit and delete functionality?
No idea.
I think that's basic CRUD. You can create, remove, update, or delete.
Okay,
So that's the permission to edit a media item.
right.
Okay. Date, then view all media revisions and view all revisions. I think that makes sense for an editor. And also publish content, dated revision, own unpublished content and media. View post, access counter. I didn't know that we had that.
I don't know what that is.
Me neither. Okay, and view administration theme, that's something that it's okay for them to have. I think it
Yes.
makes sense also on the editor role.
I'm not sure that an editor should have the permission to go from published to archived.
Which one? This one? Here one.
So
No, which one?
I guess either of them. So archived to published, that sounds like a manager role, and perhaps also published to archived should also be a manager role.
For the record, because of how permissions work, I think we may get feedback after we put this patch in, and someone may say, hey, this is having an unintended consequence, or hey, you forgot something else. So I think we don't have to be too ultra worried right now, because
I agree.
it's a starting point. I think that this sounds good.
And Ofer, do you want to say what you posted in Slack in the chat message?
On Zoom message?
Yeah, the Zoom
Yeah,
chat.
I created, if anyone, because of this discussion and others, I created just a simply test me website, and you can go with admin, and if you want to see any of the settings, or if we don't remember something.
Okay. I don't know. Does anybody need that? Maybe with what you just said about just going with this proposal and then getting feedback, or if you want to share the screen, whatever you prefer. Not sure if we need something right now to check anything.
No, I think Ofer just did that. So if anyone wants to see the admin screen themselves, there's an easy way to do it.
Nice. Okay, thank you all. It's been really, really, really useful. This, I think it's going to help unlock this. And also, if anyone in the call could jump into the issue and say, I was in the call, I agreed, or something like that, so they can see there's more people apart from me saying that's okay, that will help move this forward. I will paste what we've been talking on the issue, and later I would really appreciate your comments in there, and also thank you for listening, Liv. I think I have everything for this issue now.
Okay.
Thank you, Christina. This is awesome.
Thank you all for your feedback.
And Aaron, I assume you'll be posting a comment to the issue we discussed earlier.
Yes.
Thank you. So we still have more than 10 minutes left. I know Aaron posted another suggestion, but does anyone else have things they'd like to talk about?
I don't.
Aaron, do you think 10 minutes is enough time to discuss that issue, or shall we just end the meeting early?
I could be. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the issue, but we could have a look at it, because it's got screenshots, which makes everything easier. So happy to share my screen if we want to have a quick look.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so this is issue number 134 2009. Join language
Wow,
and time zone settings.
2007.
Yeah. It's a bit of an old one. It recently, I think yeah, there was some activity about 14 years ago. And then not so much activity for a while, and it kind of popped back up again, and there's been some screenshots here posted. I think the idea is basically to bring the language and time zone settings into a single field set. And there are some screenshots here. So I think this is these are as it is right now. So actually, let me open these in a new tab, because there's like 4 screenshots here. Oh, and the zoom controls are in the way. Can I move these? Yeah, I can. Okay. Yeah, so this is if you have, so one is with like the personal contact form enabled, I guess. And then there's after screenshots, which I presume are, I can't click today. I presume the differences they also have. Yeah, so you can see what's happened is basically the language and time zone has moved into the same field set here. So I think the idea is we're just looking, I think the issue was just looking for some feedback around if this made sense. Yeah, I know there was some discussion around potential backwards compatibility breaks of doing this, but I think there's ways around that. So yeah, I guess any particular feedback, it's essentially taking the site language the language settings and the time zone settings for the user and putting them into the same field set or into the same area, which to me makes sense. I don't know if we want to, it's probably not the right issue to dive into any specific wording around it, but feel free.
Are you sharing just the window?
Oh, is it?
Because
Yes.
if you're sharing the whole screen, then you could have 2 of those open at once. But
yeah, no, it's just
okay.
Just that one window. Also, my yeah,
All right. Could you switch the order of the second and third screenshot? Just
yeah.
okay. So now let's spend a minute looking at the multilingual ones. So
Yeah.
linger a bit here. So language settings in one field set, and there's only one setting in that field set. And then context settings, one checkbox in that. Oh, yeah, we have 3 field sets and each one has only one control. That seems silly.
Yep.
And then the idea is to combine the first and the third, the language settings and the locale settings. I'm ready to switch to the other one. Anyone want another few seconds here?
No, thank you.
Okay, the after screenshot, please.
Yep.
So we're renaming the field set localization and putting 2 controls in one field set. That seems like a good idea to me.
Yeah.
I don't know why this hasn't been done since 2007. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay, I'm ready to look at the single language. Anyone else want a little more here? Okay, single language, please.
Yep.
Contact.
Oh, I see what the difference is. Okay. Contact form was there the whole time. It was the so it's just time zone in this case. So yeah, okay.
And then what's the change?
So it would then, it'd effectively just swap the 2 around, but then also change the field set. Still, the title would still be then localization.
Still like this better. So
Yeah.
I'm sold.
So basic usability questions. Is it more or less discoverable? Is there room for confusion? Is it clear what action can be taken and how to take it? I don't see any drawbacks on any of those.
I think it also establishes a UI pattern that if you were to do a contrib modular, want to change something, it's more flexible. You would use the same field set to add additional localization options to.
Hmm.
I think it was a lot less clear in how it currently is. So the before shots, it's less obvious where you'd put something, and it almost implies that if you had a modification, you'd add an additional field set, which is really bad UI.
Yeah. And I totally agree with what you're saying. The thing that's in my head is, if you only have time zone here, does it really need to be in a field set?
Well, it's already in a field set, and we want to have some consistency between monolingual and multilingual sites.
Yes. And yeah, it's a good point about if you're, it gives an indication as to where you would add stuff if you're doing a contrib.
I think it also, because it's in a field set, it can start off collapsed, and changing localization is relatively infrequent in most sites, at least most of the sites that I've worked with, I should say. I shouldn't say most sites, the sites that I have worked with. And so it aggregates the information in a commonly accepted term. Localization is something that's widely used. It establishes a pattern, but at the same time, it's collapsing, and it results in one less collapsed line. So before, if you go to the third screenshot, multilingual before edit profile, this results in 3 collapsed lines. And so you're actually creating more noise on the page where most people aren't necessarily going to be editing this. So there actually is a lot less to have to go through.
Yeah.
All right. I'm happy to update this issue unless someone else wants to do it. And we have just a few more minutes. If anyone who hasn't spoken up much wants to chime in now, please do. And if not, then guess we're done. Thank you all for joining, and hope to see many of you again next week.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.